Okay, so good evening. Welcome to the Hatfield School Committee. This is our March business meeting. It's Monday, March 9th. And as we call this meeting to order, we're going to start with the opportunity for public comment. We do this by anyone who wants to join us in person or anyone who wants to join us by Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom tonight that would like to make a comment? Nobody there, so we can turn Zoom off. There's no one with us in person, and so we will move on for mission moments. Ms. Petra.
So at our February all-school meeting, second grade was hosting, and in the audience were parents and grandparents, because of course it's open to the public. But unbeknownst to me, there was a grandparent in the audience who works in another district in Pioneer, and was so impressed with the high school presentation that emailed their superintendent, and I got a phone call from another principal up there asking me more information about how it is that we orchestrated high school students to come and speak to the elementary school students. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's been a purposeful thing. If our all school meetings happen to coincide before 2 o'clock when they have a dismissal, Jason and I have been trying to make sure that we're showcasing some form of students coming to our all school meetings. So it's nice to know that even other districts were like, that's such a great idea. Let's get the high school students to come and talk with the elementary kids.
That's awesome.
But I feel proud.
As you should.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. Other mission moments?
I'd like to go. I'm going to talk about the kazoo parade that we had for our Smith Academy opening ceremony for our Olympics, and it was fantastic. It just so happened to be that it was also Miss Jackie's last day with us, so she got to lead the parade with the torch in the kazoo theme, and we did a nice send-off for her at the end too, which was great, celebrating her 19 years in the district.
Wow.
And the event was just so much fun. It was a hoot.
What song did the kazoos play?
Oh, the Olympic theme song. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Which everyone knows by now.
With kazoos.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was great.
she'll be missed.
Is this something you hope to do every 4 years or every year?
Well, there has been a push to try to do it every year. We'll see. It's sort of snow dependent.
Yeah.
But you can do summer.
We
I
could.
was going to say,
You
you
can
can
do
do something in
the
something in
Summer
June.
Olympics.
We have plenty of time in June this year.
Yeah, that's
gotta-
true.
Reward ourselves somehow.
June. Awesome. Other mission moments?
I'll go. I took my two boys to the open house at Smith Academy, and we were, all three of us, very impressed, very interested, and the students that led our tour were so informative and so excited about being in a school, had a lot of good things to say, walked into the teacher's room. It was just such a wonderful vibe. That's what Omar said, my son. He liked the vibe, which I was like, that's great. He came into Smith Academy, walked into it, told me absolutely he's not coming to Smith Academy to halfway through decision that he'll come back for 7th grade.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
So if there's anybody watching, if you want, I don't know if you do tours or
Absolutely.
you should, if you're on the fence, you should definitely give Smith Academy a look because it convinced us that it was a great place for our kids. Matthew, who's in 4th grade and going to be we really went for the tour for him. Even though he's in 4th grade, but that's not far away. So you got two boys very convinced to come to Smith Academy and happy. That was a very well thought out tour, and I wish there were even more people there. So we do need to spread the word. And I would say if you are do not walk to Smith Academy, run, honestly. So
That's great.
very good job. Thank you.
Yeah, they did a great job.
My mission moment was the same. We went to the open house, and I gotta say the student was fantastic, but we had a big group, so there was a little less chatter. What I walked away with was the new hires were great.
Yes.
So we met several of the new teachers. Like already knew we loved the old teachers. Saw the new teachers. In fact, our new art teacher was so impressive that there was a family that I really thought we would probably lose, and now they're pumped.
Nice.
Just from that interaction alone.
Oh, that's great. It's nice to hear.
So they're doing a good job. And the math teacher had there were 3 kids at the table trying to solve math stuff while he talked to the parents. We're like, Really. So
Absolutely.
it was awesome.
It was.
I concur that the student tour guides were great. They were well informed. They had their little notes and they referred to them when they needed to. But every classroom that we visited, the teacher was as spectacular as the student in giving information and answering questions. And actually, a huge shout out to John Garrett, who I felt like was the most pumped up about people coming to Smith Academy.
Janae Charette was pretty tough.
No,
Yeah.
So many
I
good
love
ones.
John Garrett.
Yeah.
But
No,
Janae
all right,
Charette was
so-
really good.
Actually, John Garrett was like, Omar had a long conversation
good.
about,
Sure.
the, super nerdy about the clubs and
Yes, chess
yeah,
club.
chess club
Yeah,
and
all of
the
that.
D&D club
D&D
too
club,
was
oh,
a very
man.
much. Also, the
Um,
art teacher, that was
Mhm.
another one. Omar has gotten into clay and pottery making, and he saw that she had the
New
wheels
wheels, yeah.
in there, and he was like, "Oh my god, I can do that!" So
because the timing, I didn't get to go into all of the rooms because another group would be in with a teacher, and so we didn't like
Sure.
barge in. So there were a couple rooms that we didn't get to, but I just kind of poked my head in and say hi to the teachers, and it was just such a welcoming environment. It just felt so good.
Great.
Sorry you
they
didn't get to
did a
go,
nice
Adam.
job.
It's okay.
Soon
enough.
Soon enough.
It's
It'll be
coming.
there before you know. That's
But
awesome.
continue those. That
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
fantastic.
We
And-
may need to have more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Several
do think
times
we
a
need to
year.
have more.
And every year I'm so impressed by, because it's not always the kids that you think like, oh, this like person's going to sign up and do a great job. Every year we get students who are like, you wouldn't necessarily peg them as like, hey, this person's going to be like a really engaging public speaker as a tour guide, and they just rock it every single year. I'm
Mhm.
surprised by at least a handful of our tour guides who do a great job.
It's a great experience.
I
for
know
them,
one
too.
of our student had a basketball game right after,
Yeah.
and he needed to get to
He
the
did.
game,
He sure did.
but he was so torn about leaving us. I'm like, it's okay, like we're almost done. You can leave, and he's like, no, we'll finish up here. And I could tell he needed to go. So it was really nice that he was like very conscientious about finishing the job before he went out to do something else.
Definitely another one in the late fall when we're accepting applications for the January admission.
Yep.
Around that time, promote another one.
Yeah, that could work to
Yeah.
get them in
Mhm.
years.
I will, just because we're talking about this, I will also say that I really appreciate that it was like the whole experience. Like it wasn't just about the middle school or just about the high school. Like I really appreciated that you could see this whole sort of like trajectory and all the possibilities. And I thought that was actually really great. Like I
Sure.
thought that was like really nice to do it as like a whole school together. The middle school is substantially separate, but like kind of seeing the whole vision of what Smith Academy is about was really good. So
Yep.
anyway,
great.
yes, more.
More.
Anyways.
New carpet didn't hurt.
No.
The new carpet was delightful.
Mhm.
No one else will know, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. So we're going to table the consent agenda for tonight and the student rep report.
There was a student rep report that came in late.
Oh,
So
I looked,
Hmm.
but I must have missed that.
it came in very late.
Okay,
Came
so
in very
we,
late.
we can read that
yes.
shortly. But we can move on to the PD plan.
Sure. So let me pull up and I have to apologize. Apparently the most important link in this whole plan wasn't shared, but I will share it now. There it is. All right, so you should all be able to access it at this point. But I'll present this quickly. So as you know, as part of our our new collective bargaining agreement, we really kind of fleshed out the how the PD committee meets, who is on the PD committee to make sure it's very representative of all grade levels, all disciplines, and sort of what their goal is by March of each school year for the upcoming school year. And the goal really is, by the time March comes around, to present for the PD committee to agree upon and to present to the school committee their vision for next year's PD. And so I think we did a pretty good job of that this year. Really kind of looking at every single PD opportunity that exists in the calendar. And it started with developing a proposed calendar. That comes from the PD committee, and then looking at priority areas, distilling and kind of prioritizing what those areas are, and then going back to the calendar and saying, okay, here's the time that we have. Here is how we're going to organize it so we get kind of the most bang for our buck. So really, as we talked as a committee, there really were three kind of generalized areas of focus. And I'm going to take these right to left as opposed to left to right. We're going to start with the nuts and bolts in the academics. So these are trainings that people think, the committee said these are kind of critical elements to have and to be trained upon. And even if they're not, they're not the exact focus of our SEL or academic rigor pieces, they are the core things that if you don't have them, things are just going to fall apart. So you need these. And so those include the mandatory trainings at the start of the year. So those are kind of the legal trainings that we have to do, but also the important, like, hey, here's where your emergency allergy lists live in your classroom. Here's how you access that information for students in your class so you can keep students safe. Here's how to conduct yourself during a fire drill, during a lockdown drill, during a shelter in place. Here's what they all mean. So new training for new staff, as well as a refresher for staff that need it. So that, at the beginning of the year, no matter what, everyone has this base level of knowledge of here's how we do things to keep everyone safe and how things function, schedule, all that, the keep the trains running on time stuff. Along those same lines are technology. So familiarity with the student information system, how to enter grades, how to do all those pieces that if someone's done it for 3 or 4 years, they probably have it down, but anyone can use a refresher. But then for folks who are new, just making sure that everyone has that training. Additionally, we have a new student information system that we started using this year. And so there are tools that, this was sort of the first rollout year. There are tools that we didn't really utilize this year that will be helpful for folks to know about next year too, as we get into that. And tools that they've, it's a newer company. So there's also tools that they've developed over the course of this year that will be helpful for us too. So, those pieces are really kind of just, hey, here's how to do the things that need to be done. And then we kind of get into the sort of curriculum dependent elements of mostly technology, but also just kind of general curriculum tools, things like iReady, how to access student data, how to access student learning plans that are contained in there from the assessments, things like MyPath. So those tools, they exist, but they only are utilized if people know how to use them. And so making sure that everyone has that kind of foundation knowledge and is refreshed in it, because again, it's one of those things that if you don't use it routinely, you forget how to do it. Excuse me, it becomes difficult. So just making sure that everyone has that training. And if we do end up going with a new ELA curriculum this year, there will be need to be training in that. And so that piece is partially, here's the tool we have, here's how to use it, but also gets into the philosophy of here's how we conduct ELA instruction, here's why and the science behind it, and here's how you can kind of configure your classroom and your instruction to to align with the curriculum that you've invested in. So that's, I know the ELA curriculum committee has been meeting. And if they adopt one, and if it is within our ability to get it for next year, then we'll do that. The two other big areas, and these get into more of like the kind of, I would say, well, with the exception kind of some of the curriculum tools, but also the ELA curriculum, these two, the SEL and collaborative areas, get into the district improvement plan goals of really belonging in SEL and academic rigor. So we'll start with SEL. The elementary school has started some restorative practices training this year. They've been conducting responsive classroom training for the last couple of years. The overwhelming consensus of the committee was that they would like to see that continue and to see it go deeper. So, deeper than kind of the kind of this is what restorative practice is, but here's how it works, beyond restorative circles and mediations, but here's how it works in class culture, and here's how you can kind of infuse it through throughout the day and through everything that you're doing. And the same thing with responsive classroom, going past the community building to, okay, that part is in place, now here's how that works throughout the day. And those two pieces, restorative practice and responsive elements of responsive classroom, they work very, very well together. We have conducted some, and there's a need and also a desire on behalf of the committee to continue with our neurodiversity training, to expand that from the groups that have done it this year, to go kind of district-wide, and so teachers can spend that time not just with a trainer getting that training, but also as groups who teach the same students or instruct the same people, to take time as a professional learning community, as a core group of folks, to go into what practices they have that are consistent, and establishing those, and making sure that those align with the best practices through the training. And the last piece here, kind of, I was a little torn. The IEP student need review, whether that should fall in SEL or the nuts and bolts academic review. But again, that is time to make sure that that teachers, as well as special educators and related service providers, have that designated time and a way to go through and review IEPs, needs, schedules, to make sure that all needs are being met, not just once during the year, but kind of throughout the year as well.
Is that, just a quick question,
Sure.
does that include specials teachers at the elementary?
It will, yes. I mean, that wasn't something that we
Just because
specifically talked about,
I
but
can
yes.
imagine
Yep.
them sort of being on the outside of that, and particularly because they see every single student. That's a lot of IEPs,
Yes.
but it's so important for those kiddos that those teachers understand those needs.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that was part of the design of the plan that we had, is doing it so that time existed, because oftentimes when there's only so many hours of professional development throughout the year that you have, and so there oftentimes are, if there's a special ed training, it's for special educators, even though special teachers or other classroom teachers may benefit from it.
Yeah.
So this was part of the goal of this plan, was to kind of break those silos down a little bit and do some more work together collaboratively. Which brings us to our last piece here, the collaborative piece. The horizontal and vertical integration and alignment, that came through loud and clear from the committee, and it's really important. I know at Smith Academy in particular, we have on paper designated time for this, and that is I will say, probably the piece that gets eaten into the most by other kind of, for lack of a better word, minutia. That things that come up.
Define what that is.
You bet. Yeah. So horizontal alignment is, we'll say, all of ninth grade. So the ninth grade teachers who are across subjects. So anyone who teaches ninth grade, having time together to look at study skills that they're teaching across the board. Look at students who they teach. They all teach, all ninth grade students. To look at possibly common assessments. So if you have English teachers and history teachers that are both teaching writing, maybe they're doing a nonfiction essay. What elements can be assessed across the board, and kind of establishing commonalities between subjects so that students are kind of knowing what they're being assessed on in both cases.
And the translation for the elementary school is that what happens in third grade
Yep.
isn't dependent on which teacher you get. It's
Correct.
consistent.
Yep.
Not picking on third grade for any reason.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that popped in my head.
And that's exactly right. So, really the goal is that, in, someone's fourth grade experience, ninth grade experience, whoever they have as their teachers is going to be the same, or at least similar enough that they can, by the time they get to the next grade, they have these kind of common, understandings. Okay, here are the things that have been taught and assessed and mastered, which then gets into the next thing here, which is vertical integration. So now we're talking about, okay, learning progressions from really preschool all the way up through 12th grade. So if you look at, as a former English teacher, if you look at the English standards from 9th grade to 12th grade, there's not like really, it's not like you're doing geometry 1 year, algebra 1 year, calculus 1 year. The English standards, they pretty much stay the same, and they get more complex as students get older. So this is a chance for the things like people like the English department or social studies department, math department, science department to say, okay, during 9th grade, here's where we expect students to be when they come in, because we've met with 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, all the way down the line. And here are the things that they're going to have by the end of 9th grade. So the 10th grade teacher knows that when they're coming in, they have these established skills. So it does two things. It kind of sets that standard, and the standards exist. I mean, those are the Massachusetts standards. That's what they do. But this allows our teachers the chance to take some time to say, yep, here's the expectation. Here's where we are. We've met it. We've exceeded it. We're not quite there yet. For a kind of more realistic assessment of where students are, so that that by the time they get to that 12th grade, they've hit everything that they need to. Likewise, it also gives teachers a chance to say, okay, hey, I'm teaching 10th grade. I know we said we'd be here. We haven't got to poetry yet. So I'm sorry, but when these guys come in next year in 11th grade, maybe they're not going to have that level of poetry, that finesse that you'd like to see, so that teachers know where the gaps exist a little more. And it's particularly important. Well, it's not particularly important more so than other subjects, but things like science and math, even though you have students coming in that are going to be taking geometry, they need a baseline understanding of algebra and thinking, so that even though they're not teaching the exact same subject, the geometry teacher would need to know that, hey, these students have this level of understanding. They can do these skills before they're in here. And that even works with science. I mean, if you have students going into chemistry, they're going to need that level of understanding of algebra to be able to do a lot of that work. So those two pieces are really, those came out pretty loud and clear. And the most important thing for that to happen, two parts. The beautiful thing about that kind of PD is that the people who know what they need and how to do it best are the teachers themselves. It's not like we have to bring some outside consultant in to say, okay, here's how we're going to have a conversation about the students that you all teach every single day. They do that. They can do that. We can, if there need to be protocols to make sure the conversations stay on track and everything, we can do that. But the teachers are the ones that can do that work better than anyone else. And same thing with vertical integration. It's really time to have that conversation about, okay, here's where we want students to be. Here's the way that we're going to be doing that, and how it kind of goes up through the years. Those two things together kind of set the stage for the next two, which is course and scheduling review and curriculum mapping. So we'll take curriculum mapping first. This is kind of a morbid thought, but the way I see curriculum mapping is kind of beyond like a syllabus. is, okay, here's kind of the materials we're going to use, the things we're going to do throughout the year, and getting into almost, getting into kind of lesson planning, so that if I'm teaching English and I don't make it into work one day and can't make it in ever again, I drop dead, that someone can take this.
You won the lottery and
I won,
retired
yes,
to a
sure,
mountaintop.
sure that.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
The other way.
So there's a map that exists. So when Melissa comes into my classroom, she says, okay, here we are. Like we're gonna pick right up where we left off and keep going. Currently, we have done some of that work. That work does exist. Some of it's outdated. Some of it is more updated than other curriculum maps. But this was kind of crystal clear from both the elementary setting and the secondary setting, that folks would like some more time to work on this. And that works really well when you have conversations about horizontal and vertical alignment, so that your curriculum map can reflect the conversations and the skills that you'd like students to have at each grade level and also across the board. And then getting into, so beyond curriculum mapping, once that's in place, spending time looking at courses and scheduling. So this came primarily from I will say mostly from the high school, is taking time to look at, not that we haven't done this, but to continue to look at, okay, here are the courses that we teach year to year. So do we alternate? What are the student needs coming up? Do we need to have 2 blocks of something, 1 block of something? Do we need to add different electives or change the electives, or something is getting stale, or just a chance to do that. And then to look at the schedule to see how best the schedule can work together. So how do we infuse things like lab blocks that might need to be longer than an hour? How do we do things like what rotation works best for students to keep momentum going, that sort of things, those sort of things. And then the last 2 pieces here, data review and usage and PLCs, we have those together. PLC is kind of a buzzword. It stands for Professional Learning Community. Really what it is a focused group of teachers that have a shared common vested interest in a certain thing. So you can have PLCs around kind of anything. So there may be a group of teachers that are really interested in project-based learning. So they form a PLC together about, okay, here's what project-based learning means. Here's how we're going to work on it. Here's how I'm going to do it in my class. We're going to share out. We're going to kind of give each other feedback on plans and work, that kind of stuff. Again, that works really well with things like vertical and horizontal alignment, especially when you want to kind of go deeper into something. And then data review and usage, that's exactly what it sounds like, is again time. And I know that the elementary school, I will say, has done a really nice job of scheduling that time and reviewing that data on an ongoing basis. And we, at the secondary level, we have the data, and I think on an individual level, teachers and teams are doing a nice job of looking through it. But there's a desire to have more time designated to, okay, we're gonna sit down as a group. We're gonna look at this data together. We're gonna distill what it means, and primarily those conversations happen really well with, again, that horizontal alignment piece. So looking at, okay, 9th grade, we all teach the same kids. Here's what the kind of objective data that we have about them says, through things like iReady or MCAS. Let's look at how that reflects with what we're actually seeing in the classroom on the day-to-day. Because again, those assessments are not necessarily assessing things that they've already learned, as opposed to the classroom assessments, which should be. And then looking at, okay, what do we need to change, if anything, to help support them. So again, the biggest piece with the collaborative section here is just a desire for the time to make these things happen. So if we go into what I failed to share previously, and I apologize for that. I linked it but didn't share it. Here is kind of a pretty exhaustive calendar of the PD times that exist. So, and this is what the PD committee spent really time doing. So you'll as you look through here, you'll see things that that are reflective of the previous slides. But for example, August 24th is a full day. That's what FD stands for. Same thing with 25th, 26th, and the 4th. SM, that stands for staff meeting. And so the second staff meeting, and the reason it says 9:14 and 9:15 is because we have elementary is on 9:15 on the Tuesday, and secondary is on the Monday typically. So they're two different dates. SM stands for staff meeting. So every other staff meeting is designated for teachers to meet together in PLCs at the elementary school, and then at the high school, middle high school, you'll see things like horizontal PLC. That's again for that horizontal alignment for students, or vertical PLC alignment. You'll also see the half days here. In each half day, there's I think one half day that the elementary school is kind of like can be a mandatory one, and then the rest at the elementary level are kind of a menu of options. So when we have these trainings that we offer as a district, we can say, hey, we're offering these kind of 3 or 4 options. You can choose to do that. If you have other training that you're interested in that aligns with your professional development plan and the district goals, then that can be approved. But here's what we're offering, how it aligns with our PD plan. And similarly at the high school, that's where you'll see some of those other those other elements coming in, the neurodiversity things like that, restorative practices.
So when all this gets mapped out and someone goes through the whole schedule, will they have sort of checked the box on all the categories you spoke to?
Yes, they will. So there's 2 things to think about with kind of checking the box is, all these elements are kind of contained throughout. So most of these, on the right side, most of those are going to be done in the first 4 days of school and follow up as needed. It's not particularly helpful to get technology training in May. But so most of those will be done pretty early. The other pieces here will mostly be ongoing. The era of sort of one and done trainings is kind of in the past. There are sometimes big trainings that you'll want to have on a full day, 4 or 5 hour trainings. But then the important piece is implementing that training. So you can get great training, but if you don't use it and you don't have follow up to say, hey, here's how it's actually working, then it's not going to be effective. And so that's the goal here is, if we have some of those larger trainings, things like restorative practice, it's great training, but again, the really effective piece is when you use it and you reflect on using it with colleagues, and you have ongoing kind of time with an expert that can come in and even coach and say, hey, I was in your class, I noticed you have these systems in place that really is effective use of some of these tools. Have you thought about X, Y, and Z? And then time again to work with colleagues to reflect on that.
Questions?
I just am wondering, so like I'm seeing how every other staff meeting for the PLC is at least, definitely in the elementary school and at times in the high school. Is like everybody part of one of these? They all pick one?
Yeah, so that's that's the goal, and it's a little how it plays out at the elementary school is a little different than at the high school, but I think at the elementary school it will likely be more kind of menu based. Here are the PLCs that are meeting. You can pick which one you'd like to kind of go to, and at the high school the PLCs will kind of exist already just by by the focus on either vertical or horizontal alignment.
So for example, I'm just trying to understand this. So for example, you give the like project-based learning. You have a bunch of people who are like really interested in project-based learning, so they make a PLC. And they're doing this at every other staff meeting.
It could be every other staff meeting. It may not be quite that often, but yes, it would be ongoing.
Maybe they would do a different one a different week then. Okay. All right. And then like, I'm just like trying to understand. So like they learn about this and then implement things in their own class, or do they like report off to the other staff?
So-
Like, I'm
so-
just curious how it
So
works.
typically with how it would work, and I'll just keep using the project-based learning example because we started with it, is it again, it depends kind of where people are starting. So if you have a group that is, just starting out, hey, I'm really interested in learning about project-based learning, maybe trying it out. They may start by working together to kind of define what it means for them and do a little research about why it's beneficial to do it in schools. They may work to plan it, plan a unit for their own classroom. They may spend some time as a group kind of giving each other feedback. Here's my unit plan. I want to know what you all think about it. What questions do you have? Do you think it would be effective? Do you have any suggestions? They may implement it and then reflect on that implementation. Hey, here's what I wanted to happen. Here's what went wrong. I'm coming to the group for suggestions about things that I could change or tweak. And there are specific protocols in place for PLCs to have that kind of consultancy that work really well to get that kind of feedback. That may be very different than a PLC that's in their third year of doing some kind of project-based work, or a group of teachers that have come to the district with some background that they're looking to expand upon. So it's dependent on kind of what the goals of the group are, and the goals would align to the school and district improvement plans. But B, it allows for that kind of peer feedback and peer improvement.
So I had to remind myself when I looked at this, because it looks like wow, there's a lot of PLC time at the elementary school, that they're all staff meetings, which are an hour long.
They're an hour long.
Yeah.
So
totally.
some of
It's
these
just
are
a-
like, yeah, but I had the same. So are the PLCs administrative approved? So somebody says, we want to study project-based learning. They show up, they ask you, you say, yep, that's like really worthwhile for what you all want to do. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, yes, they would say, here's, again, at the elementary level, it's
I usually do a
different.
Google form and I give them the different offerings and then they fill in what it is that they'll be working on.
Okay. So the offerings start from administration because it follows with
Based off of this, yes.
plans and
Yep.
this.
But I can't think of a time where someone may have come to us and said, hey, I'm really interested in doing this in the classroom, and where we would say, no, we're not going to do project-based learning. Sorry, we're not going to do this. My question would be, okay, that sounds great. Can it work within the kind of the framework of what we have established here? Because we don't want you to miss out on something important. But if this is really important to you, how can we support you in doing it?
And is there anybody who has solo PLCs?
Yes. So, for example, our Spanish teacher at the high school.
There.
Speech teacher,
Yeah.
OT. They generally have other different avenues and platforms that they are on, viewing different modules to be able to advance their degrees and or the professional learning PDPs that they are required to achieve and get.
And for Spanish, she actually has worked with the PLC of other districts and schools in the area. So oftentimes schools will have one Spanish teacher, one foreign language teacher, and so they've formed their own group where they can do this exact work. So from that came the focus and kind of how to of pushing students to get the seal of biliteracy if they're ready. So that's something that we wouldn't have explored or done if it hadn't been for Angie being part of that kind of Hampshire County Spanish Teacher PLC.
Does she then also meet with when they talk about horizontal stuff?
Yes.
She's got-
Yep. Yeah, specifically around like students.
Other questions? So I know the intent was for us to see this prior to the meeting, and that didn't quite work out with technology. This is something that the committee approves. If the committee feels like they need more time, we can put it on to I don't think there's anything detrimental to vote on it in April.
No, I don't think so. Oh, except the only thing is that in the contract or in the CBA, it has marches the kind of time for it, but we can extend it.
It had to be in to vote on for
Right.
March. And so that if there were people that needed to get booked
Right.
for trainings.
Yep.
Is there anything we're worried about in here if it didn't get approved that we might not be able to hire the training we needed?
Not at this point.
Can you tell us what beyond MM means?
Sure.
That phrase is
Be-
used several
beyond-
times.
Morning meeting.
Yes.
So our consultant that I had brought in did a lot of emphasis on morning meeting. But responsive classroom isn't just all about morning meeting. It's about academic choice, logical consequences. So there's other areas and avenues under that umbrella of responsive classroom. So teachers are just saying, we're good with morning meeting. If you're going to bring in more responsive classroom, we would really appreciate getting some other areas around, again, academic choice, logical consequences, other things that are in that realm. They would rather have training in that and have someone come in and do a repetitive, because I feel like they've gotten that down. They're good.
And beyond circles is a similar thing.
Yes.
Those are kind of like the introductory pieces of both of those kind of ways of thinking about classroom management and community building is morning meeting and circles, which morning meeting is typically done in a circle. So
It is.
again, they mesh very well together. I will say, just as a kind of final note, and then I'll stop talking, is that I think the PD committee, I'm really proud of the work that they did. I think it was a really good representative committee group that came together several times to do this, and they all, I think, were pretty happy with both the process and the result of what our goals are for next year.
How many are on that committee again?
Oh, I should know that off the top of my head.
One for every 2 grades?
Yes, it's one
Yeah.
for every 2 grades. It also includes special ed teachers, ESPs, and related service providers.
That's a pretty large group.
It's a large group, yeah, and not
Maybe 11?
everyone was at every single meeting, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think,
From pre-K all the way up to high school.
and I think it's more representative than it has been previously, which has been helpful.
So this was one of the goals that we had, that from our side of the contract negotiations, we went into looking for sort of more clarified plans for PD. It feels to me like they have really stepped up.
I'm impressed by this. I imagine the hours of work that went into this because it's really very extensive, going across, going down, the dates, the groupings.
And you know what's coming, like there's no question.
Right.
I love that part.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I imagine that it feels good to them as well,
Mhm.
that they've got ownership into this of
Mhm.
planning this out of the way they'd like it. I don't have a problem voting on this tonight
Does
because
anyone have any qualms about that? I'm just like looking at the eyeballs, make sure we're,
I don't have a problem.
okay.
I feel like there's not much that we could or would want to change, given the hard work that they put into this. So delaying it a month, for me personally, isn't going to make much
I
difference.
just want to make sure everybody had time to comprehend it.
I
Because
think
I
it
don't
was
want to
explained well.
not have questions later.
I have one question though, actually, before we vote.
Please.
I thought of one. If we're looking at, like, let's say we're looking at MCAS results or iReady results or whatever, and you can see a cohort isn't doing well, or repeatedly a grade is doing not up to snuff on a certain metric, how would you decide whether that's like a PD issue or a curriculum issue?
or an instruction issue.
Sure.
I mean, that is part of the reason for having time designated to specifically to those horizontal alignment conversations, because it's really hard when you're like, if I'm the single English teacher in, I don't mean to pick on ninth grade, it just keeps popping into my head in ninth grade, and that's what I'm seeing. You're right. I may not know. Like, hey, is it something I'm doing? I don't know.
Or are you getting a difficult handoff from previous years? Or?
Right. Or did they, and so having that time to share across the board, okay, yep, we're seeing the same thing in social studies. It's really difficult to read, science texts. So, okay, how are we going to infuse, literacy skills across the board? That's where that conversation can happen. So, regardless of if it's a curriculum, if it's an instruction, if it's a PD problem, it can be addressed kind of across the board. Likewise, having that having the vertical time ahead of time would say, if that eighth grade team might say, hey, listen, these guys really struggle with X, Y, and Z. So here's the work that we've done. We know that they might not be up to snuff in this regard, but here's where they are. Here's what we've done to help support them, or vice versa. I mean,
Great at this. You don't
and we've had that. We've had a group come in and say, okay, these guys, they've got algebra, so you can move right on right into geometry with them. And frankly, those conversations, they shape not just what teachers are doing to help support individual groups and cohorts, but they led to a shift in practice for math, for example. So it used to be that every single ninth grader took geometry, and then every single 10th grader took algebra 1 or intermediate geometry. These conversations, they led, the math team said, hey, listen, for some students, it would be really beneficial for them to have intermediate algebra before they get to geometry, because those skills are so critically important that that they're lost if they come to geometry without that. So now we offer 2 different courses for ninth grade and 2 different courses for 10th grade, to make sure that by the time students get to that 10th grade level, that they all have that, however they got there, they have that kind of that basic threshold of algebra and geometry skill. But you just kind of asked the $1 million question in education in general, is how do you determine if it is a skill deficit for students for some kind of reason, if it's curricular, if it's instructional, or if it's some other reason. And the only way to do that is through having this time designated to do it, because it's really, really difficult for someone to do it by themselves.
So thinking about our school's MCAS scores from last year, our 10th grade results were pretty solid. The other grades were not as effective, or not as desirable.
Yeah.
How are those results reflected in this page in any manner?
Yeah. So those, I mean, there's a couple things to think about for that. So the first question is, okay, those MCAS results, are those also indicative of are we seeing that in other assessments, in things like iReady? Are we seeing that in classroom assessments? Because any single assessment isn't going to give you a whole picture of how a student, or even a group of students, is doing, especially when you have cohorts as small as ours. But if you're kind of triangulating that data and saying, yeah, okay, we have low MCAS scores, our iReady scores are really not great, and yeah, I'm seeing some of those deficits in the classroom. That's when we say, okay, are we looking at instruction? And yes, the answer is yes, we're looking at instruction. Or are we, and how are we kind of triaging that? So we'll use English as an example. I know 7th grade English was pretty low last year for MCAS. So that, the way to address that is to say, okay, how are we infusing those literacy skills, not just in English class? Because it's not just one teacher that's going to help help get those scores up. How are they reading in science? How are they reading in social studies? How are they reading in math? How are those literacy skills being infused across the board? And that's where this kind of horizontal work will come into play. Okay, we know we have a cohort coming up into this class that is like, that's struggling. How can we all work together to address those needs, rather than having it all rely on that one subject teacher?
So given the need for that vertical piece, just ties in, and I'll come
Mhm.
back. Is that meeting happening early enough? Because that doesn't look like it takes place until well into the fall. Or is that something that happens early and then continues?
It'll happen. I mean, we could possibly adjust this too, if we felt there was a need to, but it also happens in the spring. So
Looking ahead.
yes, it
Okay.
happens in the spring, looking ahead too.
That's much better from my perspective.
Yeah, so we'll have, that's that's a big part of what our springtime meetings are, is okay, the, you know, the ninth grade team and the 10th grade team are going to meet to look at those things,
Gotcha.
so that there's a kind of a springboard in place for when students are coming in the fall. And there's always anomalies, but that's, it's a good starting point.
So related to this topic, as I have continued to digest this spreadsheet, I think you've spoken really clearly and very helpfully to me about like horizontal and vertical alignment and how that's so important. And I love to see how specifically that's laid out in Smith Academy.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, I know that the elementary school functions in a different manner, but I'm wondering how that is operationalized at the elementary school, because I'm just not seeing it reflected on the spreadsheet.
The vertical alignment?
Yeah, like like in Smith Academy, it says like horizontal with focus on students, vertical alignment, like in specific days. And I'm just like wondering how that happens then at the elementary school.
That actually kind of happens more during staff meeting time, actually. I mean, we spent a lot of our staff meetings this particular year looking primarily at math, knowing that we are in the process of trying to purchase and look at a new ELA curriculum. Partly because my teachers are they like the iReady math program, but what they find incredibly frustrating is the amount of different strategies that are taught for each different thing. So they said, it's really confusing to be able to teach 5 different ways to teach addition. Why are we not just teaching 2 really strongly? And then so we've been having those conversations at staff meetings, where teachers are working in vertical groups. We have K to 2 and 3 to 5, having those exact conversations. What exactly is the most salient parts of what you want kids to know how to add or subtract and divide and multiply? What are those strategies that are going to give us more vertical alignment, so that you are still building on those, so that if you're not teaching something in 2nd grade that the 3rd grade teacher isn't going to also be using.
So
But
it's wrapped in the
minimizing it.
staff meeting, though,
Yes.
not into professional development.
Yeah, I've
staff
been
meeting.
doing them this year, particularly in staff meetings, and that's partly because, again, there are PLCs that are dedicated to those, but teachers can be working on those. So those could be offerings that they're doing next year to have more vertical alignment conversations.
And then with like the horizontal, like the teachers meeting with their colleagues, is that also happening then on the other staff meetings?
No, they
or
kind
at
of do that
different
automatically when
times?
they're planning. I mean, generally, it's a little
Just
different.
as like a different setup to Smith Academy.
Absolutely.
So I'm just wondering like
Yeah.
when that happens.
So many of the elementary teachers do planning together.
Mhm.
The difference might be, of course, the 4th and 5th because they're departmentalized.
Right.
But they're constantly having conversations about what they're noticing about students. So that's impacting whether or not they're keeping the same kids in that group or cohort. Maybe they're switching some kids. And that all came from the work that Jenny and Megan had done when they were doing this as 6th grade teachers.
Right.
So that's begun trickling down to those teachers as well. But the younger grades, they work so
Mhm.
closely and do so much planning together. There's always conversations about what they're doing.
And I will add that the other constraint that the elementary school operates within that the Smith Academy doesn't, is a contractual constraint. So the second staff meeting of the month for the elementary school is designated as teacher directed time. So that what is done can be approved, but it's the PLCs by definition are
Mhm.
teacher directed.
Which-
So this gives that time for that,
Mhm.
but it's slightly limiting in terms of saying, being prescriptive as, okay, your PLC has to meet and talk about X, Y, or Z.
And that
during
makes
that time.
sense. I'm not necessarily saying I want to direct more of it, but also just to make sure, like, it sounds like the best practice. So I want to make sure that we're giving people the time, to
Right.
make sure those things are happening, right? Because even, in like a lower elementary classroom where like you kind of aren't departmentalized, right? Like it would be very important to give the students the same experience. Yeah.
Mhm.
So making sure we're like supporting that.
Yes.
So is it the case in those staff meeting times at the elementary, which is teacher directed, but we're also offering something for them? So it's like, here, we have your meal prepped.
Yes,
Versus you have to,
but I can't make them. They still have choice. But yes,
Are
that's
we-
definitely offered.
are we listing what the prepped piece is on this?
Not
We have
not
it.
during staff meetings. No, I've been doing that for the half days.
But we do kind of have it prepped for the high school,
We do.
or secondary, I should say. So even though they wouldn't have to attend, we could still sort of like
Like have a
little
suggested
bracket,
plan.
like,
Yeah.
here's what we're going to
here's what we-
offer,
Yep.
whether you want the pre-planned meal or not.
Yes, and there are definitely people who come up to me like, it would be really great if we could get a bunch of people to talk about this, and I'm like, go for it. I can't say that. You can say that.
Right.
So they do. They'll reach out and be like, hey, anybody who wants to talk about, let's all meet in my room. So that does happen.
Any more discussion on this? From what I can tell, adding that little like, here's what we're offering would be nice, just so it feels as comprehensive as secondary, but I wouldn't hold it up. I wouldn't hold up voting for that.
Yeah.
That would be nice to have.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve the professional development plan for school year 26-27 as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That was a 5-0. Thank you very much. I slotted on our agenda an opportunity for trip approval in case there was anything new coming through.
You go first.
I have 2 grades, 2nd grade and 4th grade, that are looking to go to the Connecticut Science Museum. We have our meeting tomorrow night for PTA. I can get you more details about dates, duration, after tomorrow's meeting. I guess this is just an overview of just seeing if they're willing to fund the trip, but I can get more details for the next meeting.
So I believe by our policy, if it's overnight or they go out of state, the school committee approves that trip. If someone has a burning desire that they think that that would be a problem, it would be good to say so now, even though they don't have enough details for us to go, yep. But if anybody's like, Connecticut Science Museum, oh no,
It's a terrible place to go.
why would you
It's
do
so
that?
delightful.
Okay, I'm not
Sounds
imagining there's
amazing.
any issue with
And
the
I
yeah,
want
planning.
to,
and closer than
yeah,
the
I'm
Boston
sure the
one.
kids would like
Yeah.
that.
Even though
No,
it's out of state.
sounds great.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Mhm.
So all looks good, but when you have the
Yep,
details,
absolutely.
we'll formalize that approval.
And am I hearing that there's a 5th grade trip?
That's still in Massachusetts, though.
I know, but when is that one? That one's in June, right?
Yes, I need to talk with them tomorrow because
Okay.
they may have tried scheduling that simultaneously on field day, and we're trying to figure out if field day can get moved, but the inflatables usually get booked.
up.
So that's a work in progress. Again, tomorrow's meeting is going to be flush with mini grants for all the
Okay.
different activities that happen in the spring, particularly around field trips.
Awesome. We have such a good PTA to help fund that stuff.
They
It's
are
awesome.
fantastic.
You have trips?
I have 2.
Woohoo.
So the first one I think is an easy one, and again, it's just the kind of preliminary approval. The middle school team would like to take a day trip to Connecticut, to the Mystic Seaport. They would like to go to the aquarium to see the belugas, and among other things. But honestly, it's all about the belugas. And then down into the seaport area as a whole. I just took my daughters to see the belugas. That's why I got them on, and they're wicked cute. So they would like to do that the week of Memorial Day in May. So I'm hoping to give them the green light to start planning that.
That's after any MCAS testing.
Not all of it, but it is, we can work around MCAS. Yeah, MCAS is, they keep adding things and constraining the timeline. So that will be sort of smack dab in the middle of math and science MCAS. But it should only, at that point, should only impact 8th grade, and they only, oh, and civics. They also threw civics in there now too. So that should only impact 8th grade, which has to take math, science, civics, and English.
Just
So you say middle school, does that include the 6th grade?
It does.
So it'll be 6,
Yep,
7, and 8.
6 through 8. Yep.
did that cohort just do Mystic when they were 5th graders?
No, they went to Boston.
Okay. Good to know. Because there was a group not long ago that did, so I was just like, back-to-back
Right.
years would be,
Mm.
they might be less attentive.
I don't know. I could see those blues every week. Pretty darn happy.
And the cost for this is
We don't know.
parent driven, parents
so,
will pay, or?
Primarily parent driven. They have done and would probably do some fundraising, the middle school team. But whatever is residual would be parent driven. We also do have the fund for students who need any support to do that as well.
Do you have any others?
I do.
Okay.
So here's the, and this is, I apologize that I didn't get this to you earlier. I got it today. So this is the itinerary, proposed itinerary for the Boston and Salem trip that we've been kind of going back and forth with. They switched it. Originally, they had us in Boston on Friday and Salem on Saturday. I really wanted to do a cultural activity.
Is there 2 pages?
In the Red Sox game on Friday, which is the proposed culture activity, was opening day. And tickets for opening day, as you may imagine, were very expensive. So they were able to switch that and drop the price by just over $100. So the total price, if it depends, it depends on exactly how many students we have sign up. We are limited there. But if we had, so this is, I'll walk you through this. So we start day one, we head to Salem. We go to the Peabody Essex Museum, which is a really cool museum in Salem. And then students can, and their chaperones can have lunch on kind of Essex Street there, which is kind of a pedestrian zone in Salem, which is really neat. A lot to see there. Then we have a guided tour of Salem. And I will say that this aligns pretty darn well with our curriculum. They've wanted to do Salem for a while. They do the Crucible. They do, they do a lot of the history of Salem, and we've never taken a trip there before. Then we head to dinner after that in Saugus, and then we go to our hotel in Dedham. Following that, we wake up in the morning, nice and early, bright-eyed and bushy-tails. We head to Boston. We will do the Science Museum in the morning, followed by an Omni show. It says, I suspect we'll be there a little bit earlier than 10 o'clock, hopefully. But the Science Museum in Boston is really fantastic. There's a lot of really neat stuff. I hope we get to see the lightning show. That would be pretty neat.
They still do that, huh?
I was in the cage once. I got chosen to be the person that got zapped in the cage. It was
Really?
fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Then after that, we'll head and get some lunch at Quincy Market, followed by heading to the second game of the season at Fenway, not the opening night. And we'll have, after the game, we'll head back to Hatfield. So kind of a full itinerary, but a lot of fun stuff going on. It's short notice, so it may be challenging. I know that I had inadvertently scheduled it for the weekend of excuse me, of Easter. That was the only time that was one of 2 weekends that could work with the spring schedule. And the second weekend, they said there is no possible way that they had availability or could do any of it. So the price is, it's more than I would like, but it does include a lot. So for 30 to 35 students, it would be between $466 and $488 per person. For 36 to 41 students, it would be 426 to 437, and for 42 to 47 students, it would be between $398 and $409 per student.
Say that last grouping again, would you please?
42 to 47
Yep.
students.
How much?
398 to 409. So because this is, it's coming quicker, if we get approval from the committee tonight, I'll put out an email to families tomorrow to have an initial deposit for this week, and then we'll, it would be kind of a weekly payment for the remainder. And again, we have the fund for anyone for whom it's a challenge, and I understand that's short notice, so we may have folks take advantage of that.
And the number of chaperones?
Every 10 students gets one chaperone, so it depends
And
on
it
the
sounds
number of
like you're
students.
going, by the way you're presenting.
I will be there, yes.
He wants
Yep.
to
You're
get back in that
listed as the
cage.
lead chaperone.
Yes. This is like-
Yeah.
This is grades 9 through,
This is grades 8 through 11. Yeah, so it's
8 through
open through
11.
8 through 11. We decided to open it to 8th grade to kind of build a connection between 8th grade and high school. And that worked well. It worked well in the past, and we anticipate we'd have a few 8th graders at least.
It was essentially next year's high school cohort.
Correct.
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's just that these 8th grade families will probably need to make a choice between Mystic or this.
They may. They
Because,
But-
you know,
but we
one
wouldn't- we
will
wouldn't-
be in May and one is in April.
yeah. The Mystic one is not overnight, so I don't think that would be nearly as expensive. But it is open to 8th grade to 11th.
Could do both.
Or make a choice.
Yeah.
It would be helpful when you're presenting it to let them know
Mhm.
that both are like on the horizon and roughly what the cost is, just so
Sure.
that they can make choices.
Yeah, and we should have a cost this week for the Mystic one as well.
So it looks like it would be helpful if we could approve the Boston trip so they can put that out for interest. Is there a motion to approve this trip?
So moved.
Second?
I'll
I'll
second. All yours, Amon.
I'll second it.
Let the record show.
Okay, all in favor of the Boston trip?
Aye.
Aye.
Bundle up for that Fenway game.
Yeah, it can
Fenway
be
in
cold.
April is tough.
I know you can feel the shock in your hands when they hit the ball.
And
Nice.
we need a motion for the Mystic trip because it's out of state. Yes.
I think we're not quite there yet. We have sort of established the amount of information we
Okay.
want before we approve a trip, which is why I just wanted a general, like, is there a problem? Speak now.
Got it.
So it may be a little simpler to approve it, but I think we're looking for the info. But it sounds like they're not going to have that till tomorrow night. So just timing
Correct.
is what it is.
And I have one more that I'd like to propose or kind of put out there. This is the senior trip. And so we've talked, they've had some really great ideas about places that they'd like to go as a senior class and timing. So I did constrain them a little bit from, they originally wanted to go to Puerto Rico, which would have been really fun. They all wanted to do that after
Why not?
graduation, which also probably would have been a whole lot of fun.
They can go.
But
on their
we then talked about the senior Disney trip, which is they do a great senior trip to Disney every year down there, but they wouldn't work with the schedule. So they're interested in doing a Seacoast trip in the spring prior to graduation of down to Cape Cod and then day trip out to. So it would be an overnight trip to Cape Cod and then a trip to the islands as well. So they're still working out the details of what they are proposing. This class has done a really phenomenal job over the years of fundraising. So it is likely that they'll be able to pay for most of the trip with the fundraising that they've done.
So you said spring trip. Would that mean April? or May?
I think it would mean May. Yeah. So I think they'd look more towards May.
And over a weekend, or would it be school days?
It would probably a couple of school days into a weekend. So how it's worked in the past is they've gone like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
This is sort of right before graduation.
Right before graduation, yeah. So this would be after finals, prior to graduation.
Okay.
So again, we're not sitting with the details. We may not approve it tonight, but tonight is the better opportunity for the committee. If there are more questions or concerns about this, let's raise them now so that we solve for it before it's too late.
I forget, is the senior trip chaperoned or is it?
Yes,
Okay.
it is chaperoned.
Okay.
And we've, last year they went to the Dude Ranch. So there was, there were, broken up by cabins broken up by gender with chaperones in each cabin. If it's a hotel, there would be, blocks of rooms separated by chaperones, that kind of thing.
Sounds like fun.
Anyone have any concerns about that one?
And they're not going in that far, so.
No, they could have come to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, should have been.
The trip, did we talk about the trip,
The Spanish.
the
trip.
Spanish trip?
Yeah, what's up
Changed,
with
right?
that?
Yeah, so it did
We
change.
gave an okay to that.
Okay.
Yeah, just as an update, the State Department, there had been some kind of political unrest with some attacks on officers in Guatemala. The Squads Abroad was confident that they could maintain a comfortable margin of safety down there. I ultimately said that the State Department, they raised the level of travel advisory, and I didn't want us to get a week out and not be able to send our students because of something else that had happened. So we Angie did a fantastic job working with Squads Abroad to find a similar trip. It won't be quite as language based because they're headed to Belize, not to Guatemala. But
I'll volunteer for that.
yeah, right. But
Wow.
but they have it's a similar kind of experience of a trip, and it should be wonderful. But again, I wasn't comfortable. I know that this is what they do. They do these trips all the time, and they wouldn't be spending much time in Guatemala City. But with everything that was going on, I wasn't comfortable saying, okay, we can give, because we had to make a decision. I wasn't comfortable saying, yes, we can definitely do it. Because in the event that something happened and we couldn't do it, we couldn't have recouped anything, and then our students would have missed out.
When is that scheduled for?
This is scheduled for later this month. So this is a late March trip.
Nice.
But the travel advisory to Belize, you'll be happy to know, is the same as it is going to Germany or Great Britain.
And how many students do we have signed up for this trip?
I think there are, I want to say 16. I don't have the list right in front of me, but I want to say there's a good number of students going.
Are we joining with somebody else?
No,
I forget.
this
Because
is
we did
all-
one of the trips we did join with.
Yeah, one of them we joined with Hadley because
Yeah.
they didn't have enough to run it themselves, and then we completely overwhelmed that trip. And they keep going back because it's a great experience, and they've
Nice.
done a nice job. I will say that Angie is interested. This is way down the line next year in possibly setting up a Europe trip to go to take a group abroad if they want to do that.
Okay, so we've approved the trips we need to approve tonight. We've tacitly agreed to the ones that look like there are no objections, but we'll get the information and we'll come back on those. Given the time, I just want to be conscientious of folks' schedules. Are there things that we want to highlight on the administrative reports or questions that the committee has?
I'd like to highlight one.
Please.
It's under the safety and building report. The community doors and new gym doors have been installed at HES. So we're now looking at the mechanisms, making sure that they're all working properly, and so that we'll be able to put the remote locking feature in. So that was a great one.
3 years?
Well, it's not, I don't want to, not quite that long.
Yep.
but
It's
been a while.
done.
15 months.
Yeah.
No,
When
it's
does Michael
more than
leave?
that.
Excuse me. It's been a while.
Um,
Yeah.
The other piece I wanted to add is that the bids for the roof came in, and they chose a bid for 1.133 million, which is way lower than the estimate that we got, and way lower than the design estimate too, which is great.
So that's inclusive of
That's
the
so one point,
architect, the project manager, the
not quite. So when you
Okay.
include all that stuff, it's about 1.5 million, which is still less than the 1.6 that was originally quoted.
we knew we needed a little extra.
And the boiler came in at about 280 something thousand, which is about and that's like all told and done, and it's less than just about half of what the original quote was. So both of those projects came in way under the estimate, which is fantastic.
Because I feel like
That
we were
is
told we were
fantastic.
told like 200,000 per boiler the first time around.
We were,
Okay.
yeah. I think
That's
the
higher than that.
the original estimate and quote was about 600,000 for the boiler, and it came in
Oh,
about
See what we get
280.
for running to a boiler in March.
So
So
Nice
lest
job.
anyone get really excited about like, oh, found, no, there's
No.
no found
No,
money.
no, it's
There's
just less
no,
borrowing.
it's less borrowing
Yep.
means lower taxes, which is
Yep,
grand.
which is good.
If anybody's playing along at home, it doesn't mean that we freed up money for the school
No.
budget. That
No.
wasn't part of the school budget.
No, and the other piece to keep in mind is we haven't got bids in yet for the parking lots. So
Which could,
those could be over. I mean that's you know,
Those needed.
It's
so
good
bad.
for the town.
mhm.
it's great for the town.
It is
And
good.
I'm
Yep.
Yes.
delighted. And the town has been really supportive of
Mhm.
making that happen.
Can you
Ooh,
just
and one more highlight.
go ahead?
I promise. This is it. We are in a position this year that we can field, for the first time since I've joined, where we can field both varsity and sub-varsity teams for baseball and softball
Wow,
this year, which
nice.
is fantastic.
great.
Yeah, which is really, really nice.
Do we have middle school teams?
We have likely JV teams, which are comprised pretty much mostly of middle schoolers.
Okay.
Um,
So middle
Yes.
schoolers get to play.
Middle schoolers
That's
get to
really-
play. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Nice.
And any word on how school choice applications are going?
Yes, and I updated this today. So if you looked at this before about 1 o'clock, you may not have the most accurate. We have 28
Shoulder
applications
surfing,
currently.
sorry.
We did need a lottery in kindergarten. So in kindergarten, we've got 8 applications. We've accepted 3, 5 are waitlisted. In second grade, we have 1 application. Fourth grade, 1 application. Fifth grade, 1 application. Sixth grade, 5 applications. Seventh grade, 6 applications. Eighth grade, 3 applications. Ninth grade, 2 applications, and 10th grade, 1 application. So far, we've heard back from 3 sixth graders and 1 seventh grader who have definitely committed to coming next year, and we expect more to come in. This is the time where we're seeing more applications come in. We got 5 over the weekend,
Wow.
so we're this is the time where they keep coming in.
And this is pre-advertising?
This is pre-advertising. So the other piece that we are looking at is to do more outreach. I don't know if we'll go with the same firm that we did last year, or kind of keep it internally or close, but we will be reaching out. And I've reached out independently to private schools in the area that end at grades that come into our school. So I've done that.
Or that are closing.
Or they're closing. Yep, exactly. I don't do that to public school districts. They get a little persnickety about that. So I won't be.
Can't imagine.
I won't be doing that.
Got to get them on Instagram.
But we will be advertising on social media and through other platforms as
Yeah.
well.
That's great. And that's, if memory serves, that's better than we were doing this time
It's better
a
at
year
this time
ago.
than we were last year. Yep.
Nice.
Anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, just 2 quick things. I was fully staffed, and then my newest and latest hire as an ESP took another position after working a day. So good news is there's a former ESP that is interested in coming back. So I will be fully staffed as of March 19th. And then on February 24th, the state and local police came to do some reunification procedures with our staff. Again, this is an opportunity where if for any reason we needed to have parents come and pick up, and either in an alternate location, like maybe the church or Smith Academy,
how does that work as far as what the responsibilities and roles of our staff are doing when parents are coming to do this so that it's smooth and making sure that the child is getting home to the right parent. We were supposed to do a practice on the half day, but we ended up having the snow day. So we will be in touch with whether or not, I did have some volunteer families that were willing to stay. Again, just they didn't, state police were like 10, 6 to 10 families that are willing to just kind of go through this process with us. So I spoke to families that pick up, who generally come and just pick their children up. But we will try to see if we need to reschedule.
Questions? With that, we will move on for the briefest finance subcommittee report.
So school finance met with town finance. We presented our draft budget to them, and they were pretty supportive of our budget. They agreed with the cuts that we have proposed, and they had no negative feedback.
Philosophically aligned.
Yeah, there you go. So then it goes to the select board, right?
And the date of that is still to be determined.
And then
So that's a copy of what was shared with them. There's no new news there, so we just didn't think we would rehash it tonight. Which lets us have more time to talk about policy.
Oh, man. It's what everybody's been waiting for. All right, so policy is continuing our review of all things related to conduct. So you have in front of you today, and I do really apologize for the late update that I really thought I had done and then realized I hadn't. We have a few edits to the hazing policies. We did hear back from legal, and so this is a third reading. So we have that. You have the edits in front of you. We also, I'm just going to overview real quick, and then we can discuss. JKA, which is corporal punishment. I mean, the policy just says that we don't do it, which is true. And as a committee, we feel that we should reaffirm that commitment to not doing such things. We made some cross checks, and we have no edits except to
Continue to
update the
say
date.
no.
Yeah, to continue to affirm our commitment. And then the third that we have is, it's actually kind of like a whole bundle of policies, although really we've only worked on JKAA first, which is about physical restraint of students. It is very regulatory. This policy is definitely in need of updates on our end, but it's pretty complicated. So our subcommittee has reviewed it. We've cross-checked with MASC. We are comparing with other available similar policies at other districts. We would like feedback from the committee. We're definitely not done yet. And we are also seeking legal input. Just trying to strike a balance of aligning this obviously with legal regulations, but also ethically and philosophically how we want to approach things as a district and make it something that's, I mean, in a dream world, readable to like the average person, right? Like if a family or other person wanted to look at this, right now we don't feel it's terribly readable. So we're trying to improve that. So if it's okay, I think I'd like to just start at the top.
Sure.
If anyone has any comments about
Can you just
hazing
verbally
policy.
highlight what legal wanted to change?
To take out what is written in what is crossed out
list.
here.
Sorry, I don't have that one.
Oh,
on me,
no,
but
I'm
I'll
so
scroll
sorry.
over.
Yeah.
I printed
Yeah,
the
there were
other one.
words about
Would it help if I pulled that up?
organizing and things like that. So you can see there.
Okay.
Just removing that language. There were no other changes, right? We asked questions.
Yeah, we asked questions about
That was
things.
really it.
It's on the policy subcommittee report. I think it links from there.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's a double link. There you go.
Why did legal want to take away the up to 10 days?
Go up to the top one.
Because you think you could technically go beyond that, or?
I think Dr.
one.
Driscoll had a conversation with
Prohibition
legal
of
about this.
hazing?
And actually, I don't know
Oh,
why it
okay.
didn't come through in color, but I think the sentence
I can-
below what's crossed out is what legal had replaced it with.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know why it didn't come out highlighted.
Yeah, and I can speak to
Yeah.
why they recommended that. So they our legal counsel basically in their experience has seen some pretty nasty hazing incidents, hopefully, which we will never see, and felt like they would not like to limit, to the point where some of these incidents were criminal, and would not like to limit a school's ability to discipline a student under 37H and a half or 37H and 3/4, which are the legal statutes, because a policy contradicted that. So, if someone, if there was hazing that was criminal and a student were, were charged with that criminal behavior under the statute, we could, we could technically expel or suspend a student long term if this policy limited that, then we could run into a problem. So he wanted to make sure that we didn't limit ourselves in the event that we needed to do something.
I think there would be like a possibility that this would then also conflict with our
Yeah.
policy that
Right.
we have
Correct.
on
Yep.
suspension
Yeah.
and expulsion.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So
Makes
it's
sense.
just to like not make it so narrow, just
Yep.
open it up a little bit
Yeah.
more.
That makes good sense to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is a third reading.
This
We
is the
could-
third reading.
We
We
could
are
approve this tonight.
policy feels pretty done with this.
Can we, do we want to
And
include the other one as well?
JKA.
Yeah.
I'm happy to vote on JKA. If others are
I-
happy to waive the
That one.
other readings.
So
is what
I've
it
read
was.
that.
Okay, yeah.
So I would like to make a motion to approve JICFA as presented and to approve JKA without additional readings for new policy. So I'll make a motion for both of those.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that leaves us with JKAA, physical restraint. Is there anything you guys want to talk about with this one tonight, or do you just want to leave it with us to mull?
Go ahead, Kathy.
No, I was just going to say that it's wordy. And
It's like 11 pages long.
yeah,
all the-
and
was-
we've done
Well,
a nice
JKA
job beginning
itself
to
is shorter, is like 2.5
Right.
pages, but then all the addenda
It's a lot of
are
ex-
super.
yes.
We haven't even touched those ones yet.
Yeah, we really concentrated on JKAA and worked on language. We inputted things from legal and from other policies from other districts. But if we could get feedback before we do a whole heck of a lot
I just want to
more.
make sure we're like going on the right track. I
Yeah.
think there are like different ways we could approach writing this to make the main policy shorter and then have different sections on procedures, or keep it as it is. I don't know.
Given that some of us may be less familiar with this text, could we just get maybe Connor could do a quick recap of sort of philosophically where the district stands, where you guys are headed from your, like, or you guys could recap the committee's disposition.
Yeah.
Either way.
I'm
That would be
happy
helpful.
to speak to a little bit. So physical restraint is, I think, both philosophically for us, but also legally throughout the state of Massachusetts, is only ever used as a last resort when a student presents a imminent danger to harm themselves or someone else. Cannot be used for things like destruction of property, cannot be used for any kind of punishment. Importantly, for this policy and others, it cannot be used in any written as any part of a plan, of an intervention plan. You can't say, as part of an IEP or a plan, if X happens, then staff may restrain. That can't happen. It can only be used as a last resort when all other attempts to de-escalate have failed, and when someone will be hurt, if there's no intervention that happens. Philosophically, as a district, we train staff on de-escalation primarily. I mean, even with the restraint training that we do, which is safety care training, the majority of that training is, hey, here's how you can approach a situation calmly with the goal of de-escalation. Here are tools that you can use to try to de-escalate a student who's ramped up, or I mean, hopefully not, but quite frankly, or an adult who's ramped up. And if that fails, here are the least intrusive ways to restrain a student until they're safe. It can only be used while the harm, the potential for harm exists. So as soon as a student is calmed or calms, it has to be ended. It can't be done if there's any kind of like, if a student is presenting as maybe having a hard time breathing, or if there's like, if they say they're having a hard time breathing, things like that. It needs to be discontinued. They need to be monitored while it happens. So, ideally, when a restraint happens, you have someone who's watching, who's timing, but also kind of monitoring from not afar, but from aside, how the student's doing, and that person's kind of in charge and say, hey, Connor's looking like he's in pain. You need to stop. Like that. That's that person's job, is to do that. And ideally, two people taking part in it. You can do it with one person, but the potential for injury grows more when you have fewer people that are actually doing it. If you're trying to restrain more limbs as one person, flailing and hitting can occur. Ideally, physical restraints don't happen, but in times when someone is going to be hurt, then they could need to.
Yeah, I would just, that is totally reflects what we've talked about in subcommittee. I think I would just add that, we'd had a lot of conversations just around when this might be necessary, what other options we would have besides restraint, and also thinking about, like, not only have we taken some time reviewing like the statute and other policies, but also just like thinking about our particular school district. So like, for example, we talked about how our ideal preference would be that the school nurse responds to every restraint and is designated to monitor the student and make sure that the student is safe. However, we also kind of were in this position where we're like, well, if the nurse is out sick or can't get there in time, like, can we really put that in the policy, even though this is like a procedure that we would advocate for? So we're kind of wrestling with like how to express these things while also realizing that this is a policy designed for true emergencies. It's not like a routine policy at all, right? I will just add that there are in the statute like certain regulations around like medication restraint and prone restraint. And we as a subcommittee decided that's just not something that's within our scope in Hatfield schools, and that we're not interested in pursuing. So while the law has, you can see it's like crossed out in yellow here, the law has certain provisions for prone restraint. We don't feel it's a safe practice. And we feel that if we were really at that level where there was a behavior we truly couldn't manage, we would call the police. And we would just be like seeking outside help if it was truly that severe. Because it's just like not really a safe practice, and it's not something that we would like be able to like maintain skills on, and also that philosophically we disagree with.
Yeah, and the training that we do says don't do.
Also that, right? Like the specific
we,
program that we use for training is like, it's too dangerous, don't do it. And so we just don't even want it in the policy. Yeah. Or
And
more
also,
specifically in the policy, we said Hatfield Public Schools does not use prone restraint. Yeah. So like, these are just some of the things that we're kind of wrestling with. And, maybe at the next meeting is a better time for feedback, but we did want to like bring it forward just so people can start thinking about it. And
Having the conversation tonight is really helpful.
yeah.
So that we can give you better feedback. Thank you.
And it does clearly state that any staff who is going to do restraint has to have been trained.
Yep. It's like specific people in the building who are trained. And
If a student is in a situation where there's some self-harm possibly involved, like they're they're acting in such a manner, are we required to restrain, or like is there like an issue where like failure to act is worse than acting I just wonder where our liability is either way, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, I
Because it seems a little odd to require something where then that employee could then become harmed. But
yeah, I would have to look at the statutes. I don't know, like I know that there are in some states there are like Good Samaritan laws where if you intervene, you cannot be held liable as long as you intervene within the scope of your like, you know, if someone's choking and you give them the Heimlich and they still die, you're not liable. But if you give them a tracheotomy that you're not trained to do, then you would probably be. But I don't exactly know how that pertains to this in Massachusetts, but I will reach out to legal for that.
Yeah, I was going to say that definitely that's something that we should be,
Yeah.
exploring with legal, and also like specifically in the CMR and written in the policy, the standard really is that it's an emergency procedure of last resort, except when there's a threat of like assault or imminent serious physical harm, and the student is not responsive to verbal directives. So I do think that there's like a spectrum of behavior that we're looking at, and so like the key point is going to be like this imminent serious harm. And we should clarify that as much as possible.
Yeah, because what's
Yeah.
a serious harm for one may not be a
Mhm.
serious
I
harm to
100%
another.
agree.
Yeah.
And that's just
That
how
one's
the
tough.
CMR is.
Yeah.
So, we'll get more feedback on that
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, I mean, and it's and truthfully, you get into the realm of judgment calls here too. Whereas you have a student who might be like pounding on the wall, but they're right next to a glass window. Pounding on the wall might not be dangerous, but if they smash that glass and slice their arm, it could be. So how do you, in that case, you're looking at, okay, how can I, maybe without restraint, how can I guide that student away from the wall or from the window?
how often does this actually come up?
Not very frequently.
But like, is this something like annually? Do we have at least one incident where it's required? Do trends show it happening more often now than previously, or not? Or
So typically we'll have maybe a couple in the year. We haven't had one at Smith Academy. Knock on wood. In since I've been there. But we at the elementary level, I mean, younger students get more dysregulated
Yes.
easier, and may not know when they're doing something that could possibly cause them serious harm. And so that's it does happen more at the elementary setting. So I would say every year we have a handful,
Yep.
a couple at the elementary school.
How many staff at the elementary school are trained?
5.
And we have 2 at the high school.
so how does that work if there's a situation arises at the elementary school where you need someone and the teacher in the room isn't trained? Is it
We call for safety care train.
okay?
So a call will go out. We need safety care trained personnel to go to this room,
And
and they show up.
they just flee their classroom and
Yep.
guys will be right back. And
Or I cover a class so they can go.
Yeah,
And sometimes that's just what they're doing. They're de-escalating before that any kind of thing happens. And
that-
generally, that's
Yeah.
generally what ends up happening. But unfortunately, there are times when we have needed to restrain a student. And not only do you have to then, like you said, in the policy is spot on, except that we are also required to update the state. So it's irregardless of an injury, I still have to report that to the state, regardless.
and truthfully, like if you have if you're a teacher in a room and you have a kid with scissors and you see them about to stab themselves in the leg or something, you're not gonna wait and pause and go call the office and say, hey, can you send the group the kid's gonna stab themselves. You're probably gonna just grab their arm and that's and it'll be brief until the group gets there. But you're not going to let a kid harm themselves like that just because you haven't taken the 4-day restraint course.
That's a quick interaction.
brief
That's not like a
intervention. It's
20
not like
minute
an
whole-
actual restraint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
But if
that's
you're restricting
different.
movement, you're
Yep.
still technically restraining. That's
And-
the big piece. It's restricting someone's movement.
And there are 2 levels of training that we provide. So the
Yes.
first is, hey, this is when restraint is appropriate, and that's for everyone. So for an example, when someone's like, oh, I'm, if they're going to stab themselves, like say, no, we're not going to be doing that right now. technically that would be counted as a restraint. We would need to document that because you're restricting, so like even if they're going to hurt themselves, if you're restricting that movement of that arm, that's a restraint. The other is for those, more deregulated students that need like a longer, okay, we're gonna sit with you for 2 minutes while you calm, so you don't do this. That's where the that trained team comes in. But I do think it's important to get some clarity from legal about, okay, what should go into our policy to protect staff that it happens fast. It can happen quick, and sometimes the staff who are present are not going to be the ones that have gone through that formal course.
Yeah, and to protect our students.
Yeah.
And I really think that like one thing that I just have continually reflected on as we have started our review of this is that genuinely my preference would be to be like a restraint-free school. Like I would love to be a restraint-free school, and I honestly think that should be our goal. I also like definitely understand that emergencies arise. So I do think that like I'm glad that we're looking at this policy, and it's really important to treat it with care. I'm also super glad that we revised the other conduct policies first, because like really like helping our students stay regulated and preventing restraint is going to be the best thing. You know what I mean? And then hopefully this is one of those things that we can have written in that people can be trained on. We have this lovely new PD schedule that like, so everyone is going to know like how to de-escalate these things. And then if it does have to happen, we can do it safely for everyone involved.
I think that we, as a district, have done a lot of work in the last number of years with SEL. And I wouldn't want folks that are watching this later hearing that, oh, this happens yearly at the elementary school, but not at all at the high school. It's that we're teaching these elementary students skills to self-regulate and learning all of these things that by the time we're done with them in the elementary school, they can move on. They've matured themselves enough that they can utilize the skills that we've been teaching them over and over in the elementary school. But we have little kids who haven't.
You got to have time to learn.
They have to learn, and it takes time, and some might need more time. But I believe that we're doing all the right things to give students the tools and the skills to learn.
So this one will come back next month.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes.
We have a lot of work to do on it, but we just
But
wanted to like be able to
please,
start having this conversation. If you
when you
have thoughts or a preference on how to,
I'm appreciative that you're taking the time on this.
Yeah.
and when you have some time to kill and you need to read something,
Go to the
An
top of
11-page
my
something, sure.
Hey,
Yes.
go to the
free to
top
read
of my
me.
list.
because
and give
Absolutely.
us some feedback because we'd really like that. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for all the work
Yeah.
that goes
Appreciate
into
the work on
this.
this. So that is the end of our agenda this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
First, can we just ask Dr. Driscoll,
Oh.
what is the last day of school this year?
Oh,
The last
June
day,
23rd,
yes.
And last day for preschool?
June 18th.
That's all. I just wanted that in there.
is that on the website now?
I don't know if it's on the website. I definitely sent it out in my newsletter last past week, though.
I
did see it
saw
on the
that.
news,
I did appreciate it on the newsletter.
I'll
and
keep
then-
updating. I'll just keep that in there as a constant. 'Cause
Yes.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked today to see if Mr. Tran updated the website for that.
He's been doing a
end of
good
day.
job
He's-
of
he's
keeping
been
that
on
up
it,
there,
yeah.
which is really appreciated. So
Hopefully, that's it.
don't. It's like, don't even.
It's not up
Not
there
this
yet. Right now
winter.
it still says June
Yeah.
22nd, 3
Okay.
days.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's 23rd now.
And with that, that's the end of our agenda. Is there a motion to
Motion
adjourn?
to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you
Computer
all.
just shut off. Right when-